Letter E, we've got the cosine of pi over 2 minus x times the secant. So cosine of pi over 2 minus x, if we look on our identities over here, we got cosine of pi over 2 minus u is the same as sine of u. Really, it's the same thing. Instead of u, we're just using x. So we're going to replace this whole thing with the sine of x. And again, that's using an even slash odd identity. Now, secant, on a related note, secant is 1 over cosine, and that's a reciprocal identity. Wow, my even odd writing there was really, really messy, even for me. So I'm going to rewrite that as even slash odd. So now we have sine of x times 1 over cosine. If we make sine of x into sine of x over 1, when we multiply these two together, we end up with the sine of x over the cosine of x. And we happen to know, based off of our identities, that's the equal to the tangent of x. And again, that's just using a reciprocal identity. Oh, sorry, not reciprocal. Goodness gracious. That's a quotient identity. For letter F, we have 1 minus sine squared over cosecant squared minus 1. The numerator, 1 minus sine squared, is the same as cosine squared. Again, that's another rotation of the Pythagorean identity. Now the denominator, cosecant squared minus 1, we actually have that pretty similar over here. If you look at this identity here, 1 plus cotangent squared, if we just subtract 1 from both sides, this would be just cotangent squared equals cosecant squared minus 1. So we're going to replace cosecant squared minus 1 with cotangent squared. So that was also a Pythagorean identity. This one I'm kind of running horizontally because it just happens to work out in this case. Cosine squared over, again, once you get to this point, just start putting things in terms of sine and cosine. Knowing what we know about cotangent, we can write cotangent squared as cosine squared over sine squared. That's just using one of the not reciprocal brass or the quotient identities again. Now I'm going to move this down here a little bit. Actually, I'll just keep running horizontal. Cosine squared over cosine squared times, or sorry, divided by sine squared. We're going to make that cosine squared of x. I'm going to put it over 1, multiplied by sine squared of x over cosine squared of x. Using what we know, and sorry, I realized that I'm off screen, so let me shift a little bit, if it'll let me. Let me just move this. So, we have cosine squared times sine squared over 1. So instead of dividing by a fraction, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. Now with this, the cosine squareds cancel out, and we'll be left with 1 over 1 times sine squared over 1. So that just simplifies down to just sine squared of x.